Chapter 9. Jack Fights a Goblin. The party decided to head back to Duran, report to the sergeant of the guard on what they found, that the upper level was completely destroyed, but that it still might be possible to restore it to its former glory, but also to tell them about all of the barrels they found in the lower level, in hopes that some of them contain wine, and that they'd get paid something for them. Since they left them there, though, as they were far too heavy to carry, they feared they wouldn't. But now it was time to travel as far as they could before resting for the night. Once again, no giant frogs came leaping out of the ponds as they crossed between them. They breathed a sigh of relief and hoped that the rest of their journey would also be uneventful, as they were tired and longed to sit in the tavern again and have a nice hot dinner together. As they traveled, Nightwind couldn't resist messing with Jack a little. "You know, Jack, I was thinking, maybe we'll be attacked by some goblins again, and maybe you'll get a chance to fight one in battle with your short sword and your leather armor and wooden shield. Cut it down like a real warrior." Jack, sighing, "Here we go again. I don't desire to face a goblin in battle. What I desire is to give myself the best possible chance of not dying if I do end up in a fight with a goblin, or an orc, or a kobold, or whatever." Nightwind, with a big smile on his face. "I know. I just want to see you slay a goblin in battle." Jack, "Well, I don't, I assure you." But Nightwind didn't believe him. He felt that Jack secretly wished that he was a powerful warrior, capable of cutting down a dozen goblins all by himself. Eventually they got back to the road heading into the forest, and shortly after that, night came and they set up camp. There had been no encounters. All seemed quiet and peaceful. But as they slept, Jack awoke to the sound of Shinfia's voice and battle. Shinfia calling out, "Jack, where are you? We need your sleep spell. Goblins are all around us." Jack was confused. Everyone was in the woods, away from the camp. They must have heard something in the night and all moved to engage them, thinking everyone was awake and accidentally left him there, still sleeping somehow. But now Jack was awake, and he looked for where the battle was taking place. He moved into the woods, towards the sound, but still didn't see anyone. Shinfia calling out again, "Jack, hurry! Where are you?" Jack yelling back, "I'm coming!" But he still couldn't see them. But he was clearly getting closer. All of a sudden, he heard something off to his left. He looked, and there it was, a goblin, just standing there, maybe 10 feet from him, staring at him. The goblin glared its teeth at him and growled. Jack froze with fright, but then tried as hard as he could to compose himself. He drew his short sword and glared back. "Jack, let's go, you ugly, hideous goblin. Come at me." Jack held his small wooden shield tightly in his hand and squeezed the pommel of his short sword. The goblin screamed at him and charged. Their bodies crashed together. The goblin's sword came down. Jack tried to swerve to the side while also swinging his sword, aiming for its neck. The goblin's sword crashed into his shield. Jack laughed with glee, but the collision sent his sword flailing over the goblin's head, missing it badly. The goblin swung again, and so did Jack. This time the goblin's sword caught Jack in his leg, cutting into it. He cried out in pain and tried to push the goblin away, using his shield. But the goblin pushed back, and they both just stood there, pushing against each other. Finally, Jack stepped back, and the goblin fell forward. Jack swung his sword while also trying to step aside. His short sword cut into the goblin's belly. The goblin shrieked in pain. Jack was flooded with energy and excitement. He swung again and hit the goblin in its shoulder this time, but not the shoulder that held its sword. The goblin swung back and hit Jack. Its sword sliced across his body, cutting through his leather armor and deep into his chest. Jack screamed and feared he was done for, but he was still standing. Shocked, he swung again, but the goblin avoided his sword and stared at him menacingly as blood ran down its leg. Jack's heart was pounding. One more hit and surely this goblin would fall. But the problem was that he was almost certain that one more hit and he'd fall too. They both came at each other one more time, and their swords came crashing down on each other again. Shinfia, speaking quietly. Hey, Nightwind. Nightwind, speaking quietly back. What? Shinfia, check it out. Nightwind looked over and saw Jack laying there. He appeared to be having a dream. There was a smile on his face, and he was sweating and breathing heavily, and at times he moaned. Shinfia, what do you think that's all about? Nightwind, smiling. Well, I'd say that either he's having a good time or he's having a good time, if you know what I mean. Shinfia, looking a little shocked. Wait, you think he's... Seriously? Nightwind kind of shrugged. Shinfia, looking back at Jack again, and just stared at him for a moment. Well, it better not be me. Nightwind, trying to keep from laughing. Well, that would leave Latia then, wouldn't it? Shinfia gasped. No way. Psst, psst, Jack, Jack, wake up. Jack, startled, opened his eyes and sat up quickly. What the? Where am I? He started looking over his body, certain that he was badly wounded and bleeding. What's going on? Shinfia, you were having a dream. Hope you don't mind me waking you up, but you were sweating and moaning, so I just thought... Jack, huh? Wait, that was a dream? It seems so real. Jack took a drink of water and laid back down. Thanks for waking me. Wow, that was one intense dream. Shinfia, thanks? You're glad I woke you? Jack, yes, of course. Why wouldn't I be? Shinfia, never mind. Go back to sleep. Shin, looking over at Nightwind. I guess it was a different kind of dream. In the morning, after they all set out down the road, Jack decided to tell Nightwind about his dream. He thought he might get a kick out of it. Jack, we were both badly damaged. His sword had cut into me twice, and I had cut into him twice too. Thought for sure the last time he hit me I was done, but he thought the same when my sword ripped his shoulder open. Nightwind, oh, so that's the kind of dream you were having. Shin and I thought it might be a different kind of dream. Jack, huh? A different kind? Like what? Shinfia, well, for starters, you had a goofy look on your face and you moaned at times. Jack, looking quite surprised. Wait, you thought I was having that kind of dream? Nightwind, and seeing that Shin and Latia are the only women in your life right now. Latia, oh, I can't tell you how glad I am to hear that you didn't have that kind of dream. Jack, thinking for a moment. Well, now, I feel embarrassed. Jack, thinking for a moment. Well, now I feel embarrassed. Shinfia, why? It's fine. You did look kind of funny, though. Just glad it didn't involve me. Or Latia. Jack, smiling now. Yeah, I had that dream with you two the night before we went adventuring. Shinfia and Latia had a look of shock on their faces, but then saw Jack trying not to laugh. Shinfia grabbed his neck and pretended to choke him. You're horrible, you know that? Latia, yes, choke him, Shin. I was about to slap you, Jack. Then I saw your face. Jack, oh, come on. You girls both know I could never. You're both like sisters to me. Shin and Latia looked at each other and almost started crying. Latia, aw, Jack, that's the sweetest thing you've ever said. Thank you. I feel the same about you. And she kissed him on his cheek. Shinfia kissed him on his cheek too. Me too, Jack. That was really sweet. Jack just smiled. You're welcome. But thanks for all that fun imagery. I haven't had thoughts like that in years. Latia and Shin, both looking embarrassed now. Oh, you just won't stop, will you? They all just started laughing. The trip back to Duran was uneventful, and by early evening they were back in town. They went right to the Inn of the Green Dragon, rented a large room for 6 of them, and a small room for Latia and Shinfia, and then sat down at the large round table they had sat at the last time they were here, and had some dinner. Their conversations were filled with laughter and fun. It had been a good day, and the evening was looking even better. Bale, can you explain this 1,000-year thing to me? I'm confused. How does this work? Why is it 1,000 years? Sheila: Okay, I'll try. Let's say you're a god, and you decide you want to create a world. So you go about the great, incredible task of creating a world. Bale: Now about that too, you said there are actually worlds that are round? How does that work exactly? Sheila: No clue. I read it's like 100 times more difficult to create a round world. I can't imagine the math involved. So now you've created a world. So now you need to create people that are of your race. So you create 2 part dog, part half-elf creatures. 1 male and 1 female. Bale, staring at her now: Funny. Very funny. Sheila: Or 4 instead of 2. Or more. But 4 seems good. Bale sighed: I'm sorry. 4? Why 4? Sheila: Why not? Better chance that 2 of them will mate. What do you do if you only make 2 and one of them dies or gets sick or something? Bale, now regretting asking Sheila any of this: I see. Well then, why not just make 200 of them? Sheila: 200? That's just ridiculous. 4 is good. 6, maybe 8. But there's no need for more than that, unless you want a rapid population explosion, and that's just your race. Now you have to decide if you want other races in your world, and that's where the other gods come in. Well, they come in regardless. Bale, looking more confused: So let me get this straight. If I was a god, I could create a world, but I can't create an elf, or a dwarf, or a human, or... Sheila: Well, I guess you could, but why would you? What's the point? So you create an elf, or a dwarf, and they all worship you? Do you see the problem? Bale: Not really. Sheila: Well then, you're just not thinking. But let me continue. So now other gods will come to visit you, to see if they'd like to spread their influence in your world and create creatures of their race. It's more involved than that, but I'm keeping this simple for you. So imagine now if, say, Corellin comes to your world and sees that you've already created elves. Bale: Corellin? Corellin Lerthian? He's an elven god, yes? Sheila: Yes, but that's not the point. Focus. If he sees you've created elves, he might not see any reason to stay. Bale: Why do I want him to stay? Sheila shook her head. Oh boy. Because, my floppy-eared friend, you both want and need gods in your realm. It's like a big club, and you definitely want to be in it. Bale was not quite following, but he focused and asked Sheila to continue. Sheila: Okay, let me give you the short version now, and we can discuss in more detail later maybe. When a god creates a world, other gods come to spread their influence, a pantheon of gods, if you will. They each create creatures of their race, and presto, you've got a world now. Bale: So wait, if I were a god and created a world, I would be one of many gods, right? Sheila: Yep. But if you're the god who created the world, then it's your world, which means you're in charge. The 1,000 years is your testing period to see how you do. This is a big deal if it's your first world, not so much if it's not. Now, at the end of the 1,000 years, if one of the gods feels you are not worthy of your world, they can challenge your authority. This rarely happens, but if it does, you basically have 2 choices. You can fight or you can negotiate. Bale, looking bewildered now: Fight or negotiate? This is how the gods operate? Fight or negotiate? Sheila: I'm giving you the simplified version, remember? If you fight and lose, you lose your world because the loser is banished. But if you negotiate, it usually ends up with you sharing rulership for, say, 100 years or so. That's one of many negotiations, but in general, you'll remain bound to your world for a while longer. Bale: What? Bound? Sheila sighed. Yes, you're initially bound to your world for 1,000 years. If you've created other worlds, you still rule over them, but you're bound to this one, in physical proximity, that is. But if it's your first world, then you're completely bound to it. You can't go anywhere else. It's a commitment thing. You following? Bale: Not really, but continue. Sheila: Ugh. I guess I shouldn't be surprised this is confusing you. It confused me the first time I heard it too. It's a very odd, yet very interesting system. Bale: Wait, the year here in Forestera is 997. So just 3 more years. Sheila. Uh-huh, she said, smiling. Bale. So what's going to happen? Sheila just stared at him. Something's going to happen, isn't it? That's why you've been doing all that you've been doing, isn't it? You're planning something. Bale's eyes lit up. There's going to be a challenge, isn't there? Sheila. Well, let's put it this way. 3 years from now, if you're still here, you'll find out. Bale smiled and just looked at her quizzically. You are, without a doubt, the most interesting creature I've ever met.